All right. Welcome to Untrapped, where we talk to successful people about building a life beyond business. Today's guest is someone who's turned half his electricity bill into a seven-figure business empire. He's managed millions of dollars in ad spend for people like Dan Kennedy, Russell Brunson, Jay Abraham, was nominated for Best Marketer of the Year, was one of Business Week's top 25 under 25, all before building not one, but two seven-figure businesses. But what makes Justin's story really fascinating is he's a high school dropout who went from construction to becoming what industry insiders refer to as the most sought after traffic guy in the game. He's also a former atheist whose dramatic conversion transformed not just his business philosophy, but his approach to life and family. So, whether you're an entrepreneur looking to scale your business or someone looking to align your success with deeper values, this conversation will challenge you and how you think about both business and life. Welcome, Justin, my man. So good to have you on.
Oh, dude, you win the best introduction award for sure.
So I did do a little bit of research. Obviously, I've been in your orbit for a long time, and I knew some of it, but there were definitely some things I pulled out that I thought were really interesting. So I would love to hear you first talk about, have you ever worked like a proper 9 to 5 job, and why or why not?
Yeah, I was a
No, I'm still here.
starting. I did
No
work
worries.
a proper 9 to 5 job. I was a salesman before that. I worked at Hooters. The little orange shorts were really tight. No, I'm kidding. I was in the kitchen. So I worked some really horrible jobs, coming out of high school, and then I got into sales, and that's when I kind of really found my foot, So I did sales, which helped me make the transition into internet marketing, but it was during the sales job where I kind of found internet marketing, and then kind of like famously handed my boss my business card. It's like, peace.
So what were you selling at the time?
Oh man, I mean, started out with boiler room, illegal stuff. I had this one sales job. It was like timeshare resales, which is like the biggest scam in the world.
Oh man, yeah,
Where I should have known it was a scam. I was just young and dumb, and I should have
yeah,
known it was a scam when they were like, "Yeah, you can bring alcohol to work."
yeah. Oh,
So, this guy had Grey Goose bottles on their desk. It was absolutely crazy. Uh, yeah, wild stuff. So yeah, I sold timeshare resales, and then I started getting like real sales jobs, incredible stuff. My last one where I was an actual award-winning salesman, which was selling light bulbs, but not like just little light bulbs, like the fluorescent lighting for factories and warehouses and stuff like that.
so that's super interesting because did you drop out of high school? I
I
read that.
did, yeah.
You dropped out of high school. So I dropped out of
So,
college after 2 years, but landed in sales right after. I ended up in gym sales, and I thought it was interesting because I won't say if it's still that way, but man, those dudes were some of the drinkingest people I've ever been around in my entire life. I don't know if it's just a sales thing or maybe if just sales attracts that type of person, but yeah, I had a similar experience, man. It was work hard, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours in the gym selling, and then those guys were out at night, every night, getting after it. It's a wild lifestyle.
I think they need to be a little bit wild to be good salesmen. I know there's a few that prove us wrong. But in general, they don't.
Yeah, 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 no kidding. It seems to be, yeah, something about the culture of it. So, obviously, you learned about internet marketing, which I imagine wasn't even a phrase back then, because what this would have been like early 2000s for
Yeah,
you?
yeah. The cool word of the time was infopreneur. Right.
Infopreneur, interesting.
'Cause
All right.
information marketing was the thing because we were all selling courses, but really, I mean, it
Right.
started becoming courses, but it was like ebooks, at that time because
Yeah.
video was still really hard at that time. We didn't have Kajabi's that follows,
Right.
and YouTube wasn't even around yet.
Yeah. Yeah, and even if you had it, so we didn't have the bandwidth where somebody could actually stream it, it would have been a nightmare. So that's really interesting. So, what did the journey look like from there? I mean, at what point did you go from sales to, like I said, taking some of the money out of your bills, and I'm just gonna double down on ads, like, this is the gamble I'm making, it's gonna pay off. How did you end up
Yeah.
there?
So I'll tell the shorter version because I normally tell this over an hour, on stage.
Oh, wow.
So the short version is I'm sitting at the sales job, and every day at lunch, the boss would come and eat with us. But this man he would sit down at the lunch table with a whole lemon pepper chicken, and he would just eat a whole lemon pepper chicken. And I had my little ramen noodle, and on a good day, I could have 2 packets of ramen noodles. That was a big bowl. And
Yeah.
so it was literally like looking at it, and I was like, okay, all right, so I need to stop being an employee and I need to be a business owner. I just want to eat better lunches. Um, And so when I was younger, my grandfather taught me HTML. And so I knew kind of how to build a website. That, by the way, guys, that's what your websites are built out of. Uh, Taught me HTML when I was younger and with sales skills. And I literally just opened the phone book and I just started dying. And I sold like 5 accounts, and I went home and I printed up some business cards on my little printer, and I brought one into my boss the next day and was like, hey, man, I'm starting my own business. If you ever need a website, let me know. Um, None of those deals ended up paying afterwards. So, work. From there, I had to figure out, be an entrepreneur. That's where I hooked up with Russell Brunson. He was looking for an intern. I used my sales skills to win me that internship, moved out to Idaho for 30 days. My wife home with my mom, so she had to live with, not only did I leave, but she had to live with her mother-in-law while I was gone, and had to pay my own way out there because it was a free internship. And then my job while there was to be this giant walk-in closet of courses, DVDs, seminar footage, cassette tapes. And so I got the education of a lifetime because it was all stuff about information marketing, courses, and whatnot. So yeah, that got me started into this. Was there. So I had to watch all these things and write review articles so I could make affiliate commissions off of everything that he bought. I got the education of a lifetime in doing that, but there was one course in there about Google AdWords. For whatever reason, all the things that was in there, I'm talking Joe Polish, Chet Holmes, Dan Kennedy, the biggest of the bigs are in there. It was Google ads that changed my life because it was the first time in my, you could tell the world about your product for just Google.
Mm.
So I came home, famously started a $60 a day campaign, and turns and names instead. And I've made millions ever since 2013.
So there's something super interesting about your story that I really relate to, but I'll just ask you, if somebody, let's just say somebody dropped out and they're sort of presented with this sea of opportunities of like things they could do, what would be the first thing that you would recommend to somebody? Let's say it was your son. Like, what kind of role would you suggest that they take first?
You know, I think the skill of writing is really important. Today, prompt engineering really replaces a lot of writing, but I would
Right.
say you could take, a really good prompt engineer, and they're still not going to outright me because I understand writing and prompt engineering, so those two skills combined, basically, if you think about it, leads to everything online. Even YouTubers are writing at least an outline of their video, if not their whole script. You know, Hollywood videos, document first. So if you learn how to write, you can do well. And there's a specific form of writing called copywriting, and that's, salesmanship in print. And man, if you can get those two, I mean, it's a lot, but video editing or find a, like me, I taught my brother, I sold my brother on the dream, and I was like, hey man, why don't you learn video editing? I'll do all this copywriting stuff, and then we can just the internet together. I think that's a good playbook right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I sort of accidentally ended up in sales, like we talked about. It was just kind of what I could get after I dropped out. But I've always looked back on that sales experience really, really fondly. I mean, for just a number of reasons. I had to learn how to talk to people, had to learn how to listen, had to learn how to present, which is, like you said, translates into copywriting, right? The pitch that you're going to do in person, just write that out and you've got the offer section of a sales page, right? So I've always thought that that experience was really, really good, and I value that pretty highly. Um, So you obviously took a big gamble. I said you're flying out there on your own dime. You're not making any money. You're leaving the wife at home. You're doing all this. I'm curious now. I mean, gosh, almost 20 years later, are you still? Do you can still consider yourself pretty risky in business? Are you taking big risks or making big bets, or is that something you've kind of left
My wife
behind?
would say yes. At this point, we have, the way I feel now, we have so many frameworks and systems that, yeah, I'm flipping a coin, but I'm flipping a very educated coin, and I have frameworks to catch me, and it's much more educated guesses than anything these days. 20 years in the game, read hundreds of, seen it all, done it all, watched most of these guys come and go. There's been gurus that have been out that are like, no, not even out there anymore. And in that time, you kind of learn from a lot of mistakes. I'm not saying I'm some genius or anything, just messed up a lot and figured out how to not do that anymore. And so I don't know that it's risky anymore. I can take more
Yeah.
risks because I've got the frameworks and systems now. Uh, it's actually a benefit more so than what it used to be. Before it was risky and
Right.
dangerous. Now it's like risky and profitable.
Yeah, I think of it kind of as the difference between risk and gambling. Like gambling is risky, but it's also like you can't really leverage the outcome
Yeah, anything
at
else.
all most of the time. Like it's not up to you. But like, yeah, like you said, like when you've got 20 years of experience and you're like, well, this might cost me money, but like you said, I think it's gonna work. I got a hunch, call it a good feeling.
Right.
And
I think that was a great way to put it. Before I was definitely gambling. I didn't know who was
right.
it's not gambling. So knowing the odds, it's like you can't tell me a World Series poker player is gambling. They're doing that
Right.
experience, they're reading the person, it's much more like that now.
Yeah. And I mean, also, like you said, you made some bad decisions, you made some mistakes. I think at some point, even if there is a risk, it's like, okay, so will I lose some money? Will I lose some time? It's like, well, I've done that before. So, you know, what then? We just pick ourselves up and keep going, right?
What do you do? Like,
Um,
you still,
down on your bed and be like, I'm done. It's like, well, you got to keep going.
yeah, it's like, okay, you quit. What are you doing tomorrow?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I was, I didn't know this. I mean, I think I see, but you purposely stayed out of the spotlight for a while, huh? As a business owner, like you just weren't really big into doing like interviews and podcasts and things like that. Is that true?
Yeah, I've gone through phases, probably coming up on the next phase of that. In the beginning, it was more so just like carrying imposter syndrome and, just not knowing what to do, didn't want to be on video and things like that. Um, I'm much more of, what they call it, it's not a beta, but I'm, the second in command, I'm decent at being the CEO. I've made millions, but I've never made hundreds of millions. Whereas
Right.
I'll come alongside these who are making tens, hundreds of millions, and I've made them just crazy money. Beautiful. We've just
Yeah.
done stupid amounts of money. Some of the biggest events in the world. The one that just recently pulled our record was Alex Hormozy and his $100 million day or whatever he did. And props to that guy.
Right.
That
Yeah. That's wild.
wild. But yeah, we had one of the biggest ones before that, which was not me. I can't take credit for it. I was one of the guys on there. And so I usually work a lot better in that role when I'm a number two or a number three. I add a lot of value to the number one.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think like Visionary Operator, I think that there's a book out there where they have that kind of delineation of like the goal setter, the promoter, the PR, and then you have that person actually like architecting all the stuff in the background. So what are you currently doing? I mean, obviously you've got ad skills, which I think is either in the process of or has transitioned away from ads to AI. And then you've also anything else that you're sort of running or operating at the moment?
So we were putting a lot of AI into ad skills, and now we're breaking that off. We have ad skills and agent skills, so that thing
Okay,
coming down the
nice.
pipeline. And in that way, ad skills can stay about ads. But I mean, there's going to be some AI, and AI is
Right.
lawyers, doctors are using AI, but much breaking the laws into agent skills, which is done for you agents. I see it. What everyone was buying before was information. But today, you don't really need to buy information anymore. Information is everywhere. I mean, in your pocket, you've got ChatGPT, Wikipedia, YouTube, Google, and that people don't need information anymore. It's everywhere. But now what they need to do is they need to be able to deploy that information. They need to information. And so that's what agents are. And so me, I take a look at agents. And I'm like, wait, I've been selling digital for a long time. I know this playbook. And so I'm just taking what I've done with courses for 20 years, and I'm just doing that with agents now because it's just a digital.
Yeah. And I'm curious, like, degree, where do you see marketing playing a role in the next, 5 to 10 years as agents take over, specifically around like media buying and things like that? I mean, do we still have media buyers 5 years from now? Do you think, like, what does the future hold for that as we do develop, agentic AI and things like that?
you know, it really depends on where the clients kind of move to. But right now, like if there was no more updates at all, uh, that cover this, end of year 25, if there was nothing else, already marketing is 95% on me. This is not my, information. This is not my opinion. This is large corporations that have done surveys and research and all that stuff. And they found that 95% of what marketing agencies provide today is completely automatable with just the AI tech that's available right now. And it's only getting better. And so I don't see how services and agency stuff is going to survive when these tools can now do them. I mean, I'm building tool. I just finished an AI agent today that replaces a writer, email writer, that replaces an ad writer. Several of these things that replace these different employees. The pivot is people really need to learn how to build these agents and be building agents, managing agents. But I think the real play going forward is it takes a lot of thought to come into an organization and realize, okay, here's all the pieces of what you do. Like, you have your whole organization. And if you think about it, most people only know their spot. The CEO maybe sees everything, but even sometimes that's not the case. So they need somebody who understands AI to come in, look at the whole picture, then break it all down to tasks. And now we can say, all right, we're going to build an AI agent that replaces this piece and this piece, and then this piece, and then this piece, and then this piece. And now all of a sudden you're getting, 30% more efficiency, 40% more efficiency, 60% more efficiency as you start replacing different areas with AI and then moving your top talent to hire, because I'm not with about it's just, bad hat, but I really don't believe in the replacing humans with AI. I believe in empowering humans with AI to make you so much better. I think that's what people are going to move. People are, some people are going to get hurt because they don't want to change. They don't want to learn something new.
Yeah.
But then they're going to lose their job and realize, oh crap, I need to learn that thing. I mean, right now, doctors don't want to learn AI, lawyers don't want to learn AI, but they're being forced to. And the ones who are creating new innovations are making even more money, So it's like, either wait till after the belt hits you or get ahead of the belt. Oh, don't let.
Yeah.
It's your choice. One way or another, the belt's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting you say that too, because this was last year, and in Costa Rica, my wife went and had some dental work done, and they did a scan, and there was a cavity, and the doctor came back, and he was like, "Yeah, we use AI to diagnose like whether or not it needs a filling or not." He was like, "So we can wait. It's not something that needs right now, but like this is a technically third world country. Last year was already leveraging AI to do diagnoses on patients. So that's that's where we're going. That's what's potentially out there on the horizon for all these other businesses you
Yeah,
mentioned.
I was, just helping out a family member who was in the hospital, and they were telling me their symptoms. I'm just entering them in the quad as they were
Yeah.
coming about, and I had the same diagnosis as the doctor, but 3 hours earlier than the doctor.
Yeah. That's unbelievable. So, and I'm curious your thought, like, so you think, what are your thoughts on the difference between what you just mentioned, kind of a custom bespoke, AI agent automation solution for businesses versus more of a productized offering where you say like, hey, we only do AI appointment centers for real estate agents, and that's just all we do, but we do it at scale. Like, what are your thoughts and opinions on that?
I think just different people, some people like to be consultants, they, do the, fly. They want, I mean, there's the consultant like it's got some grandeur to it. I've had it for all time. It's a great thing. Some people just like that. Some people they just have a computer. That's kind of more my vibe these days. Like I've got a really sick workstation, and I love my big monitor, and I got everything just the way that I want it here in the room. Is my battle station. I can just sit here and I can build stuff and deploy, build and deploy, build and deploy. And I can do that for a couple hours. Then I can go walk my dogs and go to church and go live human life, but I can come in here and I can go to war, and then I can go step outside and smell the races. I like that life, but that's what I'm saying. It's like different people, different strokes for different folks kind of things. Pick what you like. Are you more introvert and want to kind of build and deploy, and you're probably want to build AI agents and sell them? Or do you like the putting on suits and flying out and standing in front of the room and being kind of the madman kind of the vibe? If you like that, then there's an amazing play to be a consultant right now and teach these companies.
Yeah, on that, you touched on something I'm curious about. How did you make the decision to move to the boonies? Like, what was that thought process like for you and the family?
Well, we were traveling. Uh, we just decided to pick up. And at the time, we were traveling in our RV here in the U.S. The week gone over at Bali, Japan, Jamaica, Australia. Middle. Our family, we love that song. I've been everywhere, like we.
Yeah, yeah.
Except for the Middle East and South America, but one day. So we were in the RV traveling around, and we were in New York on our way down to Florida for Christmas. That was home base for us in Florida, but we have some New York family, and kind of in between is Tennessee and mountains, and it's green. It's right between our families. Four seasons. It just was a good spot for us. The taxes are amazing. Freedom. You could literally have a trunk, in a parking lot here. I traded a dog kennel for completely legal here. I mean, it's crazy. So that's just kind of what appealed to us, right between fam. To come see us, but not too far for us to go see. I love you all if you see this.
No, I get it. I mean, especially like you said, the green, the weather, things like that. It's one of the big things that attracts us to Costa Rica most of the year. It's so easy to be out in nature, which I think is it's just so refreshing. It does incredible G in my mindset and all that, and we love it.
Also,
And we
we
just
love video games when I was younger and crazier. Me and my brother, we talk about this a lot. Really, this is plot before, this is just before the zombies come, and in the
right.
video game, usually the people that live outside the wall are usually safe, and it was all the people in the big cities they got. And so we were like, let's pretend we're playing a video game here. Let's outside the wall, and let's just watch and see what happens. And I'm growing happier and happier with my decision as time goes on.
I bet.
The
Yeah,
opinions, I just want to be left alone.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, not saying it's for everybody. Everybody live their life, but this is what's working for me right now. I love that. So what would you say is your number one professional priority at the moment? Like what has all of your attention right now?
Patience, man. Just trying to understand this. I mean, if you think about, if you think about profitability and sale and all these different things, time, I'm getting older, they can't really just grind it out with, 3 monsters, can barely even drink caffeine anymore because I drank too much of it and my heart's like, no more. Um, and so these days is about trying, if we're going to get our time back, you would typically do that with employees, but I can do that with agents, and so we've got a smaller team that are doing much more valuable tasks. And then we're building agents to kind of grow and scale. So we've got an agent that writes our ads. We've got an agent that writes our emails. Another one writes our blog posts. Another one our images. And so we're just working towards being able to scale the business through these agents because I'm watching the very infrastructure layer of the internet is changing. And I don't think people are aware of this. And so what I mean is people like Oracle, IBM, Microsoft, OpenAI, Amazon, Meta, like the biggest of the big companies are investing hundreds of millions of dollars into creating, like Stripe created a way for agents to pay each other. Google created a new programming language called agent to agent that allows agents to talk to other agents. And so it's not going to be you Google something and you go to somebody's website and buy something. You're going to tell your agent to go do stuff, and your agent's going to go out to websites and buy stuff and sell stuff and all that stuff. And so I'm just trying to get ahead of the puck because I know that that's the world we're entering.
Yeah, I felt a little bit, I'm used to going to events, on being around a bunch of marketers and media buyers and all that, and, obviously having a lot in common. I did the 2-day boot camp with Mind Studio recently, and it was actually quite the opposite. I was probably the only sort of freelancer, definitely the only digital marketer in there. Everybody else, like you said, was from Intuit. They're people from Amazon. They're from these massive organizations, or, a couple layers down. And for all the same, they want all the same things as we do. They're figuring out, like, how do we use AI? How do we use agents? How do we cut costs? How do we do all those things? And yeah, I think it's really, it makes a lot of sense what you said, that like the internet, it's literally changing as we speak, the way that the world operates. And it's, man, it's interesting to watch for sure. So if we go a little bit farther, like 5, 10 years, I mean, what's your vision? I know obviously you've got ad skills, agent skills. I know you also have faith funnels. I don't know if that's ever, something you want to make huge, or if it's just kind of a passion project, but what is your vision over the next, half decade or decade?
Reformulating that. Um,
Yeah.
when when I converted, I was instantly walk away from a $2 million business, and people were like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You can still be a business owner. You don't have to just leave everything." Um, and so I came back into business, and then I started with the funnels. I'm really not doing too much with it at the moment. Right now, I'm helping start, understand the value of email, because it's really their emails, just whatever. It was just Sunday announcements. It's like, oh, there's so much more you can do with email. And they look at the about
Yeah.
automated sequences and autoresponders and tagging and all these different things. So I'm trying to help some of them with that. They already, if you think about it, pastors and priests, they were the original influencer. Yeah. They've been
Right.
creating content for centuries at this point. Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm helping them leverage the content that they already have into more things. Really fulfilling work. I like that work a lot. A lot of money in there, which is why I keep the business stuff, throws off the cash that allows me to go do fulfilling stuff. One of the things I'm kind of working on in the background is, my wife hates that I call it this, but it's kind of like a mock argument, and so if you're of the faith, you're supposed to go and tell other people about the faith. And sometimes that leads to arguments. It shouldn't argue. I'm not saying that, but, so the app, using AI to replicate conversations so that when you do have in-person conversation with someone, you're ready for these arguments and the what ifs and so I'm building it in a way where there's like winnable arguments. So we start with very simple things and you 2 or 3 replies and congratulations, you beat that boss, and then you work your way up
That's
to
cool.
like the more and more intelligent and So I'm working on that, and that I think is going to help some more. And so these are some of the things I'm working on in the background as I automate more and more of my business. It's not like I'm just like, laying up in the house. Like, I still got ideas and passions and things like that. But I'm just, gaining back more of my time so that I can do things like this to hopefully just try to help the world.
I love that. And that brings up an interesting point I wanted to ask you about. I'm curious for your take on hustle culture. Obviously, there's the entire part of the internet that thinks you just got to nose to the grindstone, 80 hours a week, hard, hard, hard. I personally, I'm not sure that you can win as an entrepreneur without having a period of that at some point where you're just kind of grinding. But I would love your thoughts. Like, what is your attitude about hustle culture? Is it necessary? Is it dogma?
It's totally unnecessary. You don't have to do it. If you're okay with patience taking 5 years, it's like the crazy thing about this whole like internet marketing, internet business world is we were all okay with a 4-year timeline, right? You get out of school, you go to college for 4 years. If you want to be a millionaire, that meant you'd probably go be a lawyer or a doctor or finance or something like that. So you'd probably be in school for 6 to 8 years. And that plan works out just fine. And that will still work in the internet business world. Like you don't have to grind, but it's probably going to take you 4 to 6 years to build it if you're not grinding. So if you want it to happen in 6 to 18 months, then there probably is going to be a good 3 to 6 month part of your life where you're going to need to be all consuming, if you want to run that fast. You don't need to, though. You could take your time. If I could do it all over again, I would, have a job and build on nights and weekends. You have your 9 to 5 and then you have your 5 to 9. And that's probably a healthier way to do it. But let's be honest, not everybody's going to do things the healthy way. And so I think the wrong thing of hustle culture is that you have to live that way permanently. You will burn out.
Right.
You will become unhealthy. It does take a toll on you, care how tough you think you are.
Yeah, and I think what I think isn't talked about enough is how dangerous it is to get used to that, like you're saying. Because as I was transitioning out of the military, I started my agency, so I effectively had 2 full-time jobs, and so I was literally at work, and I come home nights and weekends, like you said. I'm working on building this agency, but when I got out, I was used to it feeling a certain level of stress. Like I was just kind of that had become normal, and so when things slowed down, I had this weird sort of disconcerted feeling of like, what's going on? Are things okay? And then I would create these situations of stress for myself to be like, oh, okay, now I'm back to normal.
Yeah. You can
And I was
feel like you're not being productive when you're not
right,
putting
100%.
Yeah, comfortable with a different level of productivity and know that you're making 2 steps a day instead of maybe 6 or 7 steps a day. And that's okay. That's probably the better way to do things.
Yeah. Well, how are you doing that for yourself? Because I won't share intimate details, but I've seen your schedule. It's pretty light. I mean, you've done a good job, like you said, of automating a lot of the things that were consuming your time. So, like, how do you do that? I mean, how do you get to that point where you're comfortable just walking away for a few hours?
There's pictures if you dig. There's pictures of me my alarm clock at 3:30 in the morning. Rise and grind. All that stuff. I used to do the Superman sleeping habit and biphasic sleeping, and tried all the nootropics and all the yes. There's 24 hours, and it ain't changed it. It's spend all the money. I'm trying all the things. There's 24 hours in a day. Make use of it. Sleep 8 of them. You want to get really productive? The best I've found, drink water and sleep 8 hours. Nothing is going to beat those. If you'll do those, it feels like they're not productive, but you're going to have a strong brain. You're going to have better attitude, all that stuff. So do those things. But what now? Like how to live? I think you were living a healthier program now. So
Yeah, like how do you just keep things balanced and allow yourself to get away from work for multiple hours at a time?
So it started with well, having to work weekends. So I'm just going to make weekends untouchable, and I started there, start with a Sunday, make Sunday untouchable. I mean, even God had to rest one day. So, uh, um, and so start with two. And then what I did from there, I said, well, people are doing pretty well with this 9 to 5 thing. What if I just make a mandatory whatever we stop at 5, that's what tomorrows are for, is to do what you didn't finish today. And so then I did that. And then I was saying and stuff like that. And I noticed that I would still get the same amount of work done, even if I was only working like a few hours in the morning. And that's because I had to pick and choose what my work was. And so I was just not doing a bunch of fluff work. And that's when I really realized, me and my wife kind of realized this 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. And some people are night out, some people are morning. I work better in the morning. And so this 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. With Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days a week, 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. I mean, jump to this. So don't go from where you're at to hustling to that. Like, that's going to suck and hurt and you're going to hate it. But like, I worked my way into that. And that's actually now way better than anything that I've been doing. And some days it's 10 to 2, 10 to 3, like today, I have a 10 to 3 p.m. And that gives me a lot of life in my schedule. And I just have to choose what goes into that time. And because I'm more selective of what's in there, uh, same amount of work gets done. I'm just not doing crap stuff that we think is work that's not actually work.
That makes so much sense. And I had a similar experience. We were in Costa Rica and we had guests, and so I had to learn everything in before we'd go off for the day to do all these things. And I got to the end of the week, and I was like, I still got pretty much everything done. How is this happening? And I realized, oh, okay, I'm probably not being as productive as I think I am when I'm sitting at my desk all day. Um, and I've heard people share similar stories. We know it's just like you suddenly realize, like, I'm overdoing
Yeah.
it.
One other thing I want to mention is there is productive tasks and then there are super productive. So a productive task is anything that produces something. That's all productivity is. It's not timers and to-do lists. Productivity is producing something. And so you can be productive or you can be super productive. So super productive is when you're doing something that will now do something for you, like building an AI agent or, writing a training for an employee or creating a course so that you now never have to teach that subject again. So adding more super productive things into your schedule will actually really help you because that's work you do once and then it works for you. So yeah, be thinking about that.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Well, we're getting close to the end of time, and I want to be respectful of your schedule. I'm curious, especially as everything we've talked about with time, AI, and all of that. What does freedom mean to you in the context of business and life?
I think all of us got into this thing. Most of us got into this because, we just had a bad boss or we were sick and tired of the alarm clock. And, it was like a small thing that was annoying to us every day. And we were tired of it. You didn't like driving so long to work every day. Your boss sucked or the alarm clock sucked. One of these enemies was there. And then I just realized lost. And I started was like, oh, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's this. And I realized, like, wait a minute, the whole reason I started this thing in the first place was just so that I could, go to any restaurant that I wanted, so that I could go to the movies when I wanted, so that I could take time off and go on a cruise. So for me, it was a lot about freedom means being able to do what I want in a day. I don't have to come into work. I don't have to do this video or that thing or, whatever. Really, Thursdays are the only day of the week I have to do things. And for me, that's very free. Now, I still work all week long, sometimes weekends too, but I'm like, I was like thinking about things or, maybe going and talking to somebody. So my work is very different. And I get to wake up and choose what I want to work on every day. That's freedom for me.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Justin, I'm super grateful for your time and I loved having you on. This was a great conversation. Just as we wrap up, love your where people can find you if they want to connect or learn more or, just be involved in what you're
That'd
doing.
be a horrible marketer if you couldn't just Google my name and find all. So start there. I have a bunch of free stuff out there. Look me up on YouTube. I've got a bunch of interviews. If you do Justin Brooke interview, you'll find over 30 different podcasts that I've been on. I've got a YouTube channel. I've got a blog on adskills.com. Go check all that stuff out. And when you do, I'm going to tag you with some retargeting pixels, sell you some stuff. Good.
I love that, man. Justin, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.